Malaria after 7 days of fever, where stools are small in volume with fecal leukocytes and RBCs. They're not exactly grossly bloody, but and may be followed by constipation. But this is interesting because those with typhoid, older children with typhoid fever can present with constipation instead, no? Later in the course. Okay. Without localizing signs, it's kind of difficult to differentiate typhoid fever from the early stage of a malaria or dengue fever. Ang kakaiba lang sa typhoid, the fever may last longer, no? Diyan. Kasi ang dengue up to 7 days lang yan. But if it's, if it's typhoid, the fever, of course, no, can even be longer. Tapos, associated manifestations could be headache, relative bradycardia. What's relative bradycardia? Ito yung, isn't it with fever, what to expect, the heart rate should increase, di ba? Pero may marong situations na mataas yung temperature, pero you don't see tachycardia, but it's bradycardia instead. Pero so one disease you may encounter this would be in typhoid. But it's not common, no? That they look toxic, yung musty, damp hair like others, siguro yung sobrang kakapawis, diba pag masakit, maasim-asim yung amoy niya. They have tender, doughy abdomen with slight guarding. They may be coughing, so minsan you may mistake it for a respiratory infection when hindi naman pala. Ang kakaiba niya, no, the patient goes on to even have fever, no, beyond 1 week, no? And so on the second week, some patients may present with rose spots. They are described as 2 to 4 millimeters rose-colored spots on the chest or abdomen, but I still have to see, no, rose spots in patients with typhoid fever. It's kind of, we don't really see this, pero yan, nagkaka-organomegaly na sila. Okay, and they febrile, no, even up to 2 to 4 weeks. That's how long it can be. Followed, and if uncomplicated, the fever can resolve spontaneously, no? Fever is uncomplicated. If uncomplicated, however, okay, around, by the second to the third week of illness, around, there are patients who can develop complications. And the most common would be intestinal hemorrhage. Less than 1 to 10%, and this results from erosion of the pairs patches in the walls of an enteric muscle. So how would you think will they present if there's intestinal hemorrhage? What would be noticed? What happens to the stools? Nagiging black, diba? Or maybe not. Or maybe they complain of severe abdominal pain. And or, much less common will be intestinal perforation, just 0.5 to 1%. So in cases like this, sobrang sakit yung tiyan nila. Others might increase in abdominal pain, tenderness, vomiting, with signs of peritonitis. Okay, but between the two, the more common one, if ever, would be intestinal hemorrhage. And this is seen sometime along the second to the third week of illness. Okay, other complications, altered liver function is common but clinically significant. Hepatitis with jaundice and cholestasis are relatively rare, but should they be present, it is associated with higher adverse outcome. Yan, neurologic complications are uncommon in children, may include delirium, psychosis. Di ba sa probinsya, there are patients na went to na specific fetal illness, tapos nagkakasunod sila ng they become delirious, and maybe that's what they call, used to say in the front, ay, nagtipus yan. Maybe that they're referring to typhoid fever. But this is only uncommon in children. And it can have all of this, any of these complications. Okay. Tapos, so how do you diagnose? You usually do a CBC, no, for patients having fever. What to expect? Some degree of anemia, leukopenia, neutropenia, and there may even be thrombocytopenia. So if thrombocytopenia is known in a patient with typhoid fever, that is considered a marker of severity that may accompany DNC. The gold standard, of course, is culture, so whenever typhoid is being considered, go on and repairs the blood culture. Is it useful? So it's standard, you do that, you order for blood culture, unfortunately, the positivity is only 40 to 60%, no, if done in the first week. Okay, so what other specimens can you send after the first week? You can also submit urine and even stool. Because after the first week, though you may be able, the organism, the bacterium from the urine also. But standard though will be having a blood culture. But take note, the positivity is only 40 to 60%. The best specimen actually is a bone marrow aspirate. You know what's a bone marrow? DNA? Actually, that's not done routinely. So, bone marrow aspirate is said to be the most, this has the highest positivity, considered that it does not get affected by the giving of antibiotics. No? But like I said, it's not done routinely unless you cannot totally rule out the possibility of a hematologic malignancy. Isn't it? They have fever, organomegaly, and cytopenias, or even pancytopenia, so which may mimic hematology. So whenever you need to work, you cannot entirely rule out hematologic malignancy, but happens to be typhoid, go on. No, you will have that DMA aspirate for culture. In case that's where you may be able to isolate the organism. So if you do liver function, you usually do liver function tests when there's hepatomegaly. It's expected to be the range, but significant hepatic dysfunction is rare. Okay? So there's other tests, typhi dot. It's an ancillary test. Okay? It detects the presence of antibodies to Salmonella typhi to IgM and IgG. So if you do this, so request, so but their test, merong iba na IgM na yung na-detect. But when you try to look for IgM, the patient should be at least the 5th day. Di ba unang lumalabas ang IgM, di ba? But it takes like a few days, 5th day for that to be detected. So it's an acute infection if the patient is positive to IgM and or has a positive and or has both IgM and IgG positive. The patient has both IgM and IgG. If both are negative, maybe not, but a false negative test, but a negative type that won't rule out the disease if the disease is compatible. And if what you get is just a positive IgG, you expect that in one who's convalescent, in relapse, or had reinfection, or happens to be a carrier. So between a culture and a typhi dot, you still go for a culture. Parang some would request for both, pero pag nagtitipid ka, magpa-culture ka na lang. So at least you'll be guided with sensitivity results. Nowadays, the diagnosis can even be established, no? By way of PCR. It's a promising diagnostic test. Have you heard of multiplex PCR, yung BioFire? It is able to detect for certain a lot of organisms, including Salmonella. But it's so expensive, it costs like 25,000. So you really wouldn't be just requesting for it, no? But despite all these innovations, the mainstay of diagnosis for the diagnosis of typhoid still remains clinical in much of the developing world like in the Philippines. Okay. So, parati mong consider typhoid, in a child, having significant fever, several days, but it's beyond 1 week, and seem to have prominent abdominal signs. Okay, so how do you, so you work up to CBC, at least a blood culture, but there on the 2nd to the 3rd week, you can include even urine or stool specimens. Okay. You can do typhoid, yes, but what I said, typhoid dot, a negative type won't rule it out. Okay. So how do you go about managing? Very important, adequate rest, hydration, correction of fluids and electrolytes, antipyretic therapy, and is antibiotic indicated? Yes, to minimize complications and influence prevalence. And is usually the choice will depend by the prevalence of antimicrobial resistance. So medyo magkaiba sila ng, so while we're having problems with resistance with the non-typhoid Salmonella, it doesn't to be so with Salmonella typhi. So based on our local data, yan, which are the first line drugs. So in typhoid, there are two sets of antibiotics, first line and second line. The first line antibiotics are the all reliable drugs, ampicillin, chloramphenicol, quatrimoxazole, and amoxicillin. So look at, ang bababa, look, ilan sa ampicillin ko. See? 2% lang no resistance, so very susceptible. But we're not really, most of the doctors are not using chloramphenicol these days because of safety issues. Okay, so, ayan po. So first line, so if you're considering typhoid, it's not assessed as severe, you're still allowed to use any of the first line. Amoxicillin, if oral, amoxicillin IV, or chloro, oral, or total. Kasi, wala na silang yung resistance. But what I know, ano ba si Cotral? And what I know, the resistance is still low, no, for amoxicillin. Okay, and the second line drugs, no, are also for uncomplicated typhoid, which could, and this can include third gen, no, oral cephalosporin, azithromycin, no, or even ciprofloxacin. But isn't it Cipro? It should be used with caution, no, in children less than 18 years old because of the possibility of bone, damage to the cartilage, no? So, but it's different in adults kasi sa adults, Cipro na agad sila pag typhoid. But you have to be very rational because in the Philippines, pwede pa kang amoxicillin. I've treated a few cases empirically just using amoxicillin kasi alam ko na mababa naman yung resistance. But hopefully, yun nga, you're able to isolate it. But it's severe, of course, it's severe. So when it's severe, if you are suspecting complications like intestinal hemorrhage or perforation, then you can start it on a third generation cephalosporin, which is usually, and then one that's usually is ceftriaxone. How do you expect them to respond to treatment? So, for typhoid fever, don't be in a hurry for them to become a febrile. Ang tagal, no? It takes the response to treatment, especially in terms of fever, is kind of slow. So the child may still be febrile, even up to 3 to 5 days, but somehow you will see a pattern. So you always interpret the pattern of fever. Pag naka-fever, you fine. No? But if that child, if you're suspecting typhoid, naka-fever siya immediately, that's not typhoid because classically, the response to fever is slow, especially in terms of fever. So, the fever somehow, there will be a change. Kahit naglalag na, you take note of a change in pattern, bumababa na. Yung peak at naghihiwalay, kumahaba na yung fever periods. Coupled with better appetite, better well-being, kung nagtatae siya, naglalas na yung frequency at nagiging mas hormone states. Okay, so but, like I said, the fever may persist even for 3 to 5 days, but somehow the other signs of improvement will be with. Okay, so, is there chronic carriage? Yes. Chronic carriage, suspicion of salmonella, and chronic carrier, I know in the past used to be defined as one who experienced the bacteria in the stools for like a year, but in the book, ang chronic carrier na siya is one who continues to experience salmonella in the stools for 3 months or more. So it's not very common, but it's less than 1% for non-typhoid salmonella and less than 2% for salmonella typhi. And another interesting event that can happen is relapse. Remember, salmonella typhi is intracellular, so despite adequate treatment, there's some patients who go into a relapse. It happens 2 weeks after stopping the antibiotic. It doesn't mean that you did not treat appropriately. It's just nature of the bug not being intracellular. Okay, so usually 2 weeks after stopping the appropriate antibiotic, and but the course is expected to be milder and shorter. Okay, and there are patients who may even have multiple. Nakakita ko I saw one patient nag-relapse siya. Okay, it's not exactly related to the antibiotic. Okay, And how is it prevented? Improved personal hygiene, access to clean water, proper cooking of food. Is there a vaccine? Yes. And how old? How early can it be? 2 years old and older, but only affording temporary protection, no, because the protection is only for 2 to 3 years. So it's not routine, because it's not routine, but indicate only for travelers, no? To areas who are at risk, where there's a risk for exposure, and it could be considered, no, for outbreak situations as declared by public health. Of course, pero hindi siya, it's not included, no, among the routine vaccines that the judge should be given. Okay, so I think, yeah, let's finish. Shigella. But Shigella, it's a gram-negative bacilli with more than 40 serotypes. And you're familiar, di ba, this dysentery, Shigella pexneri, Boydai, and Sonye. But Shigella dysentery is only one, that's the one of this one that is considered, the one considered to cause the most severe disease. So again, humans are the natural cause. When is it, at what age is it common? Most common, 2 to 3 years old, but not it's considered there in less than 6 months old. And 70% of all episodes and 60% of Shigella-related deaths involve less than 5 years old. How long is the incubation period? 1 to 7 days. Okay. So how does it get transmitted? Fecal to oral route, mostly via contaminated food or water. So this is interesting kasi compared to Salmonella typhi that requires large inoculum, as few as 10 or 10 to 200 organisms is enough to cause infection when it comes to Shigella. Does it have a fair state? It stops within 4 weeks. And chronic care state is rare. Okay, basic virulent strain of Shigella, it's invasive, no? It's ability to invade colonic epithelium. Some of Shigella may have Shigatoxin, may form secret Shigatoxin and even enterotoxins. But Shigatoxin is a potent exotoxin that said to inhibit photosynthesis, produced significantly by Shigella dysentery type 1 and a subset of E. coli, the Shigatoxin E. coli. And this is what is said to mediate complications not called HUS or hemolytic uremic syndrome. Okay, wherein after a bout of diarrhea, suddenly the patient can present with signs of anemia, no, like pallor, and or can develop thrombocytopenia. And hemolytic, pallor, or can have renal complications. So according to the WHO, in most developing countries, shigellosis is the most common cause of acute bloody diarrhea. It's not, hindi, huwag yung sagutin, abibiasis. According to the WHO, in most developing countries, shigellosis is the most common cause of bloody diarrhea worldwide. So it's also known as bacillary, it's referred to as bacillary dysentery to differentiate from amoebic dysentery. So it may be bloody or non-bloody with fever, abdominal cramps, rectal pain, and mucous stools. Incubation period is about 12 hours to several days. So classically, they matataas yung lagnat nila, they have significant abdominal pain, the vomiting, anorexia, GI toxicity, and urgency, and what's called tenesmus, or yung painful, unproductive straining. So you take note of that. But the stools may be watery, initially in large volume, evolving into frequent small volume bloody stools. That's one presentation. Or it could be bloody stools at the onset. But apart in most cases, will not even progress to diarrhea, but just watery diarrhea. But when you do stool exam, it will have a lot of pus cells. So untreated diarrhea can last 1 to 2 weeks. 10% persisting more than 10 days among malnourished. No? and occasionally among normal children. Okay, so parang ganyan, hindi maganda. So, I encountered this case here in Ecuador, in Mission. Infant, how old was that? 2 years old. Sabi na po ba, area, and then when you look at the diaper, yan, it's not so, can you appreciate it, it's lovely toy. But we treated it as if it were shigellosis, but we weren't able to isolate. Clinically, we thought of shigellosis. Okay, so on PE, but they have abdominal distension, and then you can do it exam. Kasi colitis sila, you may appreciate a tender rectal non-digital exam. So you can do rectal prolapse in my college children. What is interesting will be the neurologic findings. No? So they're the most common extra-intestinal manifestations in about 40% of hospitalized children. Presenting with convulsions, headache, lethargic condition, like rigidity, before or after the diarrhea. So that baby, the one that I showed you, is like that. He presented initially with 1 or 2 days of fever, nag-seizure siya, and then came the diarrhea, and even because blood is liquid. So the diarrhea, the seizures, which it could come before or even after the diarrhea. You don't exactly know the cause of the neurologic findings. No, it's not. They used to attribute to the Shiga toxin or some sort of febrile seizure, but often. But meningitis is rare. So up to now, the cause of the neurologic findings is unknown. But the book says that probably secondary to pro-inflammatory mediators, like tuberculosis factor, and one and so forth and so forth. So here, this is on from the textbook, the intestinal and extra-intestinal complications. So according to the book, the most common complication will still be dehydration. Okay? So, well here at the, pero may, persistent diarrhea, appendicitis, intestinal obstruction, but they're not common, but I look here at Akiri syndrome. It's not in the book anymore, but this is a very important complication seen particularly among Japanese young children before. Akiri sounds Japanese, right? Because first noted among Japanese children, when among for these kids, who unfortunately had this, the disease was fatal and was attributed to a toxic encephalopathy. Okay, but in the latest edition of Nelson's, it's not mentioned. Yung nakalagay lang yung encephalopathy, so level. Seizures or encephalopathy. So before, and I think that's what used to be called as Akiri syndrome. Okay, so what do you do? What do you notice? So usually we request for stool exam, and if it's for Shigella, you expect a lot of pus cells. Fecal leukocytes of more than 50 on methylene blue staining. So this is sensitive. It's very suggestive of Shigella, but it's not specific. So you see a lot of people, 100 polymorphic leukocytes, or if you request for methylene staining, more than 50 fecal leukocytes. Okay, so confirming the presence of colitis. So this is sensitive but not specific because, like Campylobacter, may also present with polymorphic leukocytes. Okay, so the gold standard remains to be a culture, stool culture. Kaya lang hirap siya, it's very difficult for it to be isolated in the lab. You need to submit a freshly boiled poo. Okay, but even this, it's very difficult. Ang galing nila pa so the cases we saw in the past, just clinically suspecting na baka Shigella kasi acute granulocytosis. You do blood culture if severely ill or immunocompromised or malnourished because they can go to bacteria, but bacteria is uncommon as compared to salmonella. Okay, and then, we will detect them through PCR on stool, kaya lang like I said, very expensive. So this is the resistance pattern, no, locally of Shigella. So, wait. So, to ampicillin, mataas na siya. So, historically, nung panahon namin, ampicillin, tapos cotrimoxazole, but resistance to ampicillin, you cannot see there is already 50%, so you cannot use ampicillin, not even cotrimoxazole, because 54%. Okay, so which drug do you see there that has low resistance, either Cipro or third generation cephalosporin, and even isol, or even azithromycin. Kaya, chloramphenicol 18 na rin, no? But so this is our current recommendation for shigellosis in child with acute diarrhea. It's okay, no? They can be given oral ciprofloxacin, 50 milligrams per BID. So this is one disease where the giving of ciprofloxacin is permitted. Even if it's supposedly, it should be used with caution in less than 18. So pwede siya for Shigella. It may should be the drug of choice. Unfortunately, we don't have a suspension, so you have to crush the tablets, which a little bitter, no? Some kids may not be able to, what we call this, may not be able to take it because the taste is bitter when we crush the tablet. So this is the second line, either azithromycin, an oral cefixime, oral Pergen, or for severe cases, no, they can be given ceftriaxone. But we don't use ampli or cotre anymore because of very high resistance. Okay, so prevention is still to improve personal hygiene and sanitation for drinking water and proper cooking of food. There's no vaccine up to now. Sabi nila we need to, anyway, I think we have plenty of time. We have 3 hours next week, 9 to 12. Oh my God. Okay, more than enough. So we sort of time, but I think we will be able to,